You're listening to Bedroom Beethovens, where notable music makers break down stories accompanied by songs and melodies documenting growth through their 10,000-hour journey. And me? Well, my name is Cello, your host.
I am a bedroom Beethoven.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to episode 149 of the podcast. My guest this week is...
My name is Ric Chavez. I am a beat maker / producer, and I have some collaborations with FiveSeven and a bunch of little projects here and there.
This week, I'm happy to link up with my fellow FiveSeven Collective peer, Mr. Ric Chavez, who I've kept a close eye on seeing the evolution of his sound through the years and his entrepreneurial spirit create some true magic in the field of music. I'm humbled to be a part of such a collective, and if you're tuning into this episode, you have to know that Ric puts everything he's learned into his music, and the result is an eclectic collection of sounds. This isn't simply restricted to genres either, or one genre. We're talking, spending years linking up with people, educating himself on the music, and then humbly applying those lessons to his diverse creations now. So we walk through these experiences of life to drill down and get a better understanding on what makes him tick. But before we get to that, a few things. One, this podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. Two, some podcasts don't have websites. I do. BedroomBeethovens.com. There you can buy merch, listen to past episodes, enjoy the aesthetics, add it to your faves. I don't know. It's up to you. And Patreon.com/BedroomBeethovens is the fastest, easiest way to support me. Omicron is coming, suckers. Buy me a coffee. It's all love. First show of 2022. And I'll try my best to turn these out as always. And FiveSeven, your selfless nature, allowing me to use your music week after week and create these bridges, these guests. I'm sure everyone appreciates these tales, as do I. So strap in, episode 149. I finally get to meet the lobby god.
Yes.
Yeah, I joined the collective through FiveSeven, and I don't know about your experience, but it's like, he likes you and he thinks you're good at something and you're in. And then you're like, oh, well, now that I'm in, now I have to do something, or else I think I'm letting the collective down. Like that on my 100th episode, he was nice enough to leave a message like, congrats on 100 episodes and here's to 100 more. And I'm like, crap, now I have to do another 100 of these things or I'm going to let them down.
Like, that's how I felt when I got brought to the label. The same thing. Like now I gotta up my game a little bit.
So it's healthy motivation, and he kind of goes the extra mile to connect, and because of that, he has a way of making you feel belonged and important. And no matter how busy he is, he makes time, and because of that, maybe to a fault, I've become more of a fan of him as a person than as a producer. But I respect both halves of him equally. So you being an extension of the collective, I see all the hard work that you put in. You guys have transformed my life. You guys promote me. You respond to my tweets. You email me, ask me about my health, my life, and I can't thank FiveSeven. I can't thank you and the rest of the collective on the positive impact that you've made for this whole podcasting thing for me.
Well, thank you. No, we love the platform. We love what you do, and there's a lot of bit of work that's in the background of this, but it's all for the greater good. And I'm super thankful for Jay, just as a person, human being, friend, homie, confidant. So we've been through a lot in the last few years, and every day it's just something better and better and better. So we're thankful you're on the team, honestly, and we're concerned for everybody, man. We really have a genuine respect for everybody we come in contact with.
That's good, man. And Happy New Year.
Same to you. Yeah, Happy New Year.
Is 2022 the year you pick back up the accordion?
The accordion. So that's funny, man. So I did play that when I was super duper young. I did get a trophy for it. It was like most improved or something. But after I got that little trophy, it was packed up and never opened again. So not quite the lady killer playing the accordion. But I think if you do it the right way, you could, right? But no, I'm not picking it up. Sadly.
Well, if the accordion wasn't exactly a chick magnet, what was your experience with marching band in high school at Baldwin Park in LA? Because I was in marching band and we were all dorks, except the drum line. Those were the cool kids.
It's definitely a great avenue for people to figure out whether they want to do music for the rest of their life or not. And I don't think it was really dorks, even though I think respectively there's people that would call themselves that in that time. But our drum line was very unique. We were a wild mix of males and females, but literally because it's the valley of East LA, it's a it's like this melting pot. So we had just this wide variety of ethnicities in this drum line, and it was great. It was great, and there was a lot of things to learn, and we had fun and laughs and sweat and tears, and it was still good. It was really one of the good experiences that I had within music, like starting out with music.
And that area near West Covina, out in the central San Gabriel Valley, home of the first In-N-Out Burger.
That's it. That's
east of El Monte. Yep, there's Baldwin Park. So
that's it.
If you grew up there poor, you're going to feel really salty about this, because I just read that Baldwin Park is now 91% more expensive than the national average. So I think they're gentrifying that whole place.
We grew up pretty poor, right? That was Baldwin Park at the time. So we're talking late 70s, early 80s for the area I was growing up in, which was right off of Los Angeles Street. It was kind of a poor area. There's crime all over the city, but I do know that people had moved into there and had purchased properties and like the neighbor's property, and then built mini mansions. So being at a high percentage, not even surprised by that. Not at all.
Wow. And was your father, was he a Marine?
He was. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, he was a Marine.
Whoa. So, life is funny depending on what route you take, because if we go back a generation, your father and Thomas Lee Bass both had kids. One is you, and the other
Correct.
is Tommy Lee, both drummers in California. You joined a marching band and enrolled in the military. Tommy Lee dropped out of high school to pursue music, to start a band. And in 2009, Tommy Lee became a house DJ while you're in Afghanistan. So you couldn't be further away from music.
I've reached out to Tommy Lee numerous times that his dad and my dad were battle buddies. They were friends in the Corps. And always reached out to him, never, ever got in contact with them. And when I would message him wherever, no replies, obviously. But when I was really young, I do remember I went to that house and there was records on the wall. I watched all the videos. I was probably 10 years old, if even that. And that was my first introduction to Motley Crue. I saw pictures of this really tall guy, skinny, makeup, rocking the drum set. And I wanted to do that, but I wasn't tall. But I said, I'll play drums anyway. And so I went that route. But yeah, that's a small tidbit of information. Yeah. Yeah, it's a small world out there.
So if you were 10, I would say, 7 years later, you signed up for the Army. You signed up relatively young.
I did. Yes. I signed up 17 and left right away after graduation.
16 years ago, I tried to join the Army, and I went to MEPS. I traveled to San Antonio. I stayed in a hotel. I woke up the next morning, and I went through everything that you need to go through. I stripped down to my boxers, and I walked like a duck, the whole nine. I get to the end, and they say, you have asthma, DQ'd. It is what it is. but I distinctly remember one detail that stood out. Halfway through the MEPS process, you're in this classroom and they ask you what you want to be. And I was like, oh, I want to be a 25 mic. I'll be a graphic designer. I want to be this. People say I want to be a pilot. And one guy said, oh, I want to be an infantryman. And the instructor said, who else wants to be an infantry? And half the room raised their hand. And he said, wrong. You do not want to be infantrymen because if you survive the military, you will get out in the real world as a veteran with no hireable job skills. And you were an infantryman. So tell me, is that a load of BS or is that true to an extent?
I would say to an extent. And I think your background in the MEPS, MEPS is a particular place. So if there's any veterans that listen to this, they're probably smiling, and the smile is not out of that was a good time. It's more of like somebody can relate to me now. But I think when looking at the infantry in the 90s, getting out at that time, it was really rough because there was no additional skills. And in fact, I had went to basic training and got my blue cord and everything. I went back home. I was actually in West Covina, went to the plaza, and I had the fresh haircut. I had like an army jacket on or something like that. Like, no way you could not know I was in the army, right? Like, I was super proud of it. And a janitor came up to me. And the janitor's, he started striking up a conversation. He said, are you in the army? I said, yeah. And he's like, stick with it. Stay with it until you retire. He said, I got out after 12 years and I'm a janitor. And no discredit to janitors at all, custodians. I don't discredit any position, but that really kind of struck a chord. And so I stuck it through the best way I could. I did have a small break, but I stuck it through. But the difference now is that there's so many more opportunities out there and college funds that have more money and tuition assistance. And I boast on this. I really boast on this. I have 3 college degrees, an associate's, bachelor's, and a master's that I literally never paid for. The Army paid for it all. And so I took every opportunity I could for classes. So as being an infantryman and honing your skills in infantryman, I still pursued graphic design and music and read the history books and just try to get knowledgeable on whatever the current situation was. So people that are in there, if there's people out there right now listening and they're in and they're not taking advantage of all of these free services, it will be a hard lesson learned when they get out. And I see it all the time still. So I always preach, take all those opportunities and get that college degree. All you need is one. Just get one college degree and you'll be well on your way.
That janitor who did 12 years, though, he could have got a college degree during that time, right? It's not like do 20 years or bust, right?
Absolutely. He could have. At the time, it was called the Montgomery GI Bill. So he could have used it when he got out. And I don't know, like that conversation I had brought up, that was it. I don't know his name or anything about him. I don't even know why he got out after 12 years. But at that time, there was still a college fund going on. And it was a really weird place because it was after Desert Storm. There wasn't really a lot of hoopla about how we love our military as we do now. So, but still as a veteran, even if you don't use them, you get out, you still have opportunities to go to college and trade schools and all of that. It's just sometimes you got to put your pride to the side and do what's best.
So even back then when you got a degree in counterterrorism studies, you were already thinking post-military.
Absolutely. I was thinking post-military from like day one. I'm not going to lie. I was already trying to figure out what that next step was going to be. I was in for 8 years and I was about to get out because I wanted to get into music at the time. I wanted to start a label. I wanted to get involved. But after thinking about it, I was like, I'm just not smart enough for it. I don't know how to run a record label. And so I stayed in and, pursued college. And then I got my bachelor's in HR management. So I started considering HR jobs. And then an opportunity was given to me for my master's. So I got my master's. And even during that time, I was still, what is that next job? What is that next thing I'm going to do? But luckily right now I'm in a fantastic position. And this is the only time I've been employed that I'm not looking for another job.
I think that all the benefits that you just listed, I think the one part that could be looked as, I guess, a hurdle is if you did 21 and a half years and you went in at 17, that puts you close to 39, 40. So if you're trying to have some post-military music producer career, some people would say this is a young person's game, or not a young person's game, but maybe someone who's been at it full time when they're 17. Now you're competing with people that might be like 20, 21.
Yeah, there's a lot of difficulties. But I know my strengths and my weaknesses. And where I'm weak at, that's where I ask for help. And sometimes I get motivated and I want to do something, but then I pull myself back into reality to be like, that's literally not what I'm supposed to be doing. I think one of the weaknesses, or I don't want to say weaknesses, just one of the challenges is understanding it is a young person's game, so to say. However, the difference between a young person and a person with some years on them is that myself, I am not afraid to ask for help. And a young person rarely asks for help. And that's how they always get caught up. That's how they always get caught up. When I don't know what to do or I don't know what direction I'm going in, literally back to J57. Like I call him, send him a message, whatever, and say like, hey, I'm stuck and I don't know where I'm going with this. And then he drags me back in.
How will you know that you don't need J57 anymore as a co-producer? Because when you start out, your knee-jerk reaction could be, well, I need him to finish this because he has more experience than me. And that works. But if you have a desire to someday develop a signature sound for yourself, do you eventually want to take everything that you learned from J57 and decouple, like a student has now become the teacher type of situation?
That's a great question. I'll be honest. I don't, like, Jay and I have talked about this hundreds of times, is that we're in it for the long run, you know, across the board. And when the day comes that he tells me that he doesn't need to do anything to my tracks, then that's my next step. And I don't think I'll just be like, I'm on my own now. No, I'm always going to try to take advice from him. And I always do. I apply everything he tells me to do. And that's what's put me in this position today. So I'll never really cut that tie from his assistance at all, ever. It's not going to happen.
That's his call to make, not yours.
Correct. Absolutely.
I mentioned that you were in Afghanistan in 2009. Something I thought was interesting around that time is you were just bored of hip hop. Now, in 2009, the charts were, for people that don't know, Stanky Leg, Yo Gotti, Asher Roth, I Love College, Birdman, The Dream, Hurricane Chris, to give people an idea of the landscape. Do you regret not playing music at all during your time with the military?
Sometimes there is that regret. I'm sorry. You know, the Army has a band, every branch has a band. And I thought about it. Like I thought about trying out as a percussionist. I would miss the juice, man. I would miss the action of the deployment, honestly, you know? So there's a level of comfort being in a band because you're not really outside fighting anything. You know, you're playing music and, you know, that's your job, and more power to them. And I really thought about it, but I was going to miss the juice. I was going to miss having, you know, the missions outside the wire, and I was going to miss the action, really. So I wanted to kind of be a little bit more on the, I know I did a hard hitting job. So when my kids get older, they understand, like, I did do this. I did go to, you know, deployments, and I didn't, you know, sit in a cafeteria my whole time. You know, like I went out and I did what had to be done.
So as someone who's been on 4 tours, 4 deployments, is there a single life-defining moment, whether it's violent, intense, unusual, mundane, whatever the nature, that you have carried with you that has made you a better artist, creative, or person?
Man, one, your research is impeccable. And those are really good questions. I think that there's only a few defining points. Like there's dozens of stories and good and bad across the board. But there was one point that I think helped me become a better person just over time. Was I was sitting with a senior, and he said, "Hey, we're just going to watch how this other leader acts." And that leader was out of control, yelling and and cursing and just being out of control and like threatening soldiers. Like, if you don't do this, I'm going to beat your ass and blah, blah, blah. And then it got to the point that understanding when people are talking or conversing, if you can remain cool, calm, and collective at any point when that other person starts cursing, they've lost the conversation. You've won it. They've lost control because of just how calm your demeanor could be or how well you're delivering your points. But when somebody starts cursing and raising their voice, they've lost control and they know it. And so they curse more. And so after watching this happen, I really started to apply that across the board. Not right at that time, more late, later years, but I really, really tried to hold that. And then you want to make sure that your connections with people are genuine. And being in the military, sad to say, is there's not a lot of genuine connections. You serve with them, you forged in fire, all that stuff, and blood brothers, all that jazz. But there's going to be a time that they won't have your back, and that's been apparent numerous times. And so those are really the two things: is really sticking true to who you want to have as your friends. My circle is very small. It's very, very small. I can count them on one hand. We are all under the same mode, is that when you have a small group of friends that you genuinely love and have concern for, if any one of your friends won the lottery for $100 million, would they give you money without you asking? Right? Because they know that there's hardships. And so that's kind of like something I just kind of sit with, is that if I won the lottery for $100 million, who would I give money to without them asking? So that kind of seems to be the baseline of really who I explore with. And obviously J57's in that circle. No joke. Just from him being a genuine great human being and being supportive, that because we have these goals and aspirations that we will hit those goals.
So if I compartmentalize Chavez Sound, Soul Spasm, FiveSeven Collective, coming out of the infancy of said collective and the introduction of profitability for the label, what is going to happen in 2022 to further define these things?
So this year, and shout out to Soul Spasm as hands down the best distribution out there. Soul Spasm's fantastic. We built Chavez Sound, and it wasn't a boutique label at all. It was kind of just understanding that there's a different sound that I rocked with that Jay just necessarily wasn't rocking with. For the people that don't know J57, that guy's in a mode. When he gets in his mode, that's it. He's literally off the phone, off the internet. The guy just creates music non-freaking stop. And so we set our goals. And as far as those goals is, we're going to have, and this was brought into last year, is we have a banger coming out this year, hopefully within the second quarter. But it's with a defined legend in the game, straight up. So we have that in the works right now. He's been on a versus battle, been in the game for over 20 years, and the dude's a straight up legend. One of my favorite artists of all time. And I have a track that he's on, or he's going to be on here soon. So we have that. And then we're also working some other side projects with one of the top DJs out of the West Coast, a great guy that's out of the Northeast. And so we're working some projects with them, and that's going to, when those names pop up, it's going to be like, wow, they got those guys in the books too. So, and this is aside from Jay's personal projects and the stuff he's got going on, but we have those, and we've also kind of began manifesting, getting some more visibility on things and expanding out the roster. So there's weird connections, so I'm a fan of the Beastie Boys and Kate Schellenbach, and currently where Kate works at, there's a connection there that Jay knows. And so as we start kind of piecing things together, we're trying to create these avenues. And I would like to say that hopefully we're going to be working on a comedy album this year with a very, very funny female comedian, hopefully, if it all works out.
I love that. It's almost like when the Beastie Boys came out with the country album, something you might not expect.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And so what some people still don't know that album exists. Yeah, Country Mike and the Boys. And so if we can there's been initial talks to get an idea of a comedy album with this she's an actress that was on a Netflix series, she has TV shows, she's a traveling musician and comedian. She's awesome. So if it all works out, that's going to be I would say towards the end of the year is the goal.
That's awesome. Yeah, nobody likes a sloppy drunk stinking up the room like a skunk. That's a good album.
It is a good. I actually have that album.
So that album was only given out to friends and family. So if it's out in the real world, most people are going to assume it's a bootleg. But so you have the real thing.
No, actually, I did find out it was a bootleg.
Oh no!
I kind of knew it was because it was a guy on eBay that was selling it for like $400, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'm a fan. I'm down." And after like talking to him, he dropped it, and I think I paid like $60 for it. And I was like, okay, whatever, I have at least a copy of it because I never really heard it. And so it was a bootleg. And then I was talking with Mark Ski one day, and then he ran it through Discogs, and he's like, no, man, that's a copy. And I was like, well, at least I didn't pay $400 for it. But I got one. So.
What did Digital Underground mean to you?
Oh, man. Digital Underground, it's so crazy because right now I'm thinking like people are going to listen to this and be like, what the fuck, Digital Underground? Again, Digital Underground was probably one of the more influential groups that brought me into hip hop, but it wasn't just hip hop. It was the mix. It was the mix of jazz and fusion and trip hop at the time. And so the incomparable Shock G, like people don't understand, Shock G was this amazing musician. He had two personalities that he brought to the stage and two different styles. Was a legit piano player, producer. Like the guy just did great work. And even the off stuff, there was a group that he did some stuff with called Stylophonic. I think they were out of like France or Europe somewhere. And it was a slept on track, but it was a dope track. And so I really liked all the productions that they did, even with DJ Fusion. I liked all the stuff that was on Digital Underground. I literally own every single album of Digital Underground. And I don't know, I bet you talked to Jay, but I don't know if Jay told you, like, we were actually really close to meeting Shock G in Los Angeles because we were in the same hotel as him. And Shock G lost his cell phone and he was going on a rant. And literally, like, I was eating breakfast in the hotel and I was like seeing this on Instagram. And and so I asked like one of the workers, I was like, hey, did this guy really come in here? Like, that dude comes in here like every hour looking for his cell phone. And I messaged him, but after some other talks with Money B, his phone was actually never lost. So it's just a long night. But rest in peace, Shock G. He was really one of my favorites, and there's an influence that he gave me, just me being a fan, that I've applied to my music. Actually, more recently, I've applied some of that stuff to my music.
I'm just really impressed by what I'm hearing and how the collective's being run. You seem to have a plan laid out. And what I also notice is, like, when you read biographies or SharePoints or programs about podcasting or making Android apps, you always operate at a high level. And I'm not talking so much on consumption, but a lot of people our age, they don't empty their cups. Their ego won't allow them to believe that in reality, no matter how smart you are, you really don't know anything. There's so much knowledge out there to learn and grow every day, but people often get set in their ways. So I'm quite impressed at how you allow yourself to educate yourself on all these things.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to be caught short, man. That's the truth. I don't want to be caught short. I don't want to be unemployed at all. So I have to make sure I know how to do something.
That's the easy answer. I was unemployed 2 years ago at this time, I think it was from December to March. And my wife was in medical school. She was just finishing up. So I had a 4-month stretch of not being able to pay my mortgage, not being able to pay car notes and everything. So I had to dip into my investments. I had 2 Bitcoin, and it was worth about $7,000 at the time. So I spent that, and now 1 Bitcoin's worth like 60 grand. So it's just like, ugh. Unemployment will cost you more than just money.
Yeah.
So my goal, and it took me in my late 30s to realize that, is I always want to stay employed, not just because of stability, but because like those setbacks can cost you more than just a late water bill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, and you were lucky to get Bitcoin, because right now
I was.
Bitcoin's not, some people say it's solid. It's not solid right now.
It's very volatile. This is not investment advice. So
No, not at all. Not at
you're
all.
releasing a song a week for the rest of the year. So talk about, job stability. Do you have 52 songs in the can, or are you creating a song from scratch at the start of every week?
No, I had some of them were older tracks that were just sitting on my desktop, and I didn't really know what to do with them. So I just pushed myself to finish those off. And right now in the queue there's 16 in the queue. So I'm good for first quarter or first third of the year. Right now on my desktop, I have another 14 that I'm finishing up I'll finish those this week, those 14. And then I'll probably finish up the rest towards the end of the month, early February.
And by the time you're done with this exercise, what do you hope to accomplish?
Man, that's a good question. I think I want to get them all kind of set, so I don't have to worry about releases. So when these other projects that I have lined up, I can concentrate more on those. I think that those projects, because of how large they are, require me 100% to look at those. Usually I'm a multitasker, and I'll dedicate 1 hour 100% to do that project, and then I'll do 1 hour of music for myself, and then do my regular job, and then I still have my kids. And so doing this pre-planning allowed me to open up the first 4 months that I can concentrate on tracks a little bit better on the larger projects. Because I'm telling you, this one with this legend it's a big thing. That's a game changer right there. That's a step up for us. Not even talking money wise, even though money wise it will be, but just for the status of Chavez Sound and FiveSeven, that's the step right there. It's going to be the step up.
Well, I'm glad that I'm associated with you guys. I think it's criminal that we don't overlap more, because I feel like you and I we can bring a lot of value if we put our heads together more. So in 2022, you and I need to connect more for sure.
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So this is it, man. 2022, I feel like your visibility is at an all-time high. Nothing but good things are going to come your way, buddy. I really believe that.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
Anything else you want to plug before we're out of here?
ChavezSound.com. That's about it. All social medias are on there. Shout out to everybody, that I work with and come into the team. And even, up here, I'm in Colorado. And so up north of me in Denver, that's, we got Bobby Mercer, another FiveSeven cat. And then we got, shouts out to J57, obviously for connecting us, but just being who he is. And everybody that's helped out, Soul Spasm, man, those guys are awesome. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate what you do. And thanks so much, man. You got a great platform. I'm telling you, the Bedroom Beethovens, man, it's awesome. And I'm glad I could support it. And, I can't wait to see, the rest, or hear the rest of these podcasts you have for this year. I know they're gonna be great.